sin. Now you're being empowered again in a far greater way. And the empowerment is of the Son of God, who takes you to the family of God. Go. The word go, the word make disciples, make, is a command. Command. Jesus does not say, you may go. If you feel afraid, don't go. It's all right. Does he say that? No. Go. You have no option. It's an obligation. You must go. You must make disciples. When I'm giving sessions to lay people, I ask them, so have you gone? Have you made disciples? How many? Now I know, I used to do sessions in psychology, I used to train leaders and group dynamics and so on. And I could say, I trained him. But if you ask me, but did you make them disciples? I had to say no. I trained them in human techniques, in human dynamics, not in Jesus. Useless. Discipleship comes first. Why? Because discipleship basically is love. We are made for love. That's our deepest instinct, our deepest primordial feeling within us is love. If I don't train you for that, everything else is useless. So Jesus is telling us it's an obligation to make disciples, means teach them to love. It's a command given 2,000 years ago. Pope John Paul II said that. He says, this command given 2,000 years ago is still very far from completion. In his letter, The Mission of the Redeemer, Redemptoris Missio. 2,000 years ago, but still far from completion. Why? I'm going to give you a few figures. When you look at that little schema on the board, roughly, the figures are rough. There are 2.5 billion Christians, 2.5 billion non-Christians, and again 2.5 billion non-Christians. Now, my PowerPoint guy has made a mistake there. The first non-Christians should have been, where you see a kind of a bracket, should have been a minus. Minus. And the second one should have been a plus. The minus 2.5 billion non-Christian means that's a group that does not like us, that hates us, that persecutes us. Minus. The second group, I said, put a positive there. That's the group that accepts us, tolerates us, does not fight us. So 1/3 of humanity is okay with us. Another 1/3, as you saw in Sri Lanka and in other places, are against us. But we have to make disciples of all of them. All of them. But look at the 2.5 billion Christians. Are they disciples? Are all these 2.5 billion Christians disciples? Certainly not. In many parts of the world, 8%, 11%, 15% only come to Sunday Mass. They say they are Christians, but they don't necessarily follow the faith. And so, We have Christians who are really not Christians. But say last Sunday you went to Mass. There were 100 people there. Are they all disciples of Jesus? Who is a disciple? One who follows Jesus. I've given you on the screen the definition of a disciple, taken from Paul's letter to the Galatians, chapter 2, verse 20. I live, not I, but Christ lives in me. How many of those 100 people can say this every day, any time of the day? I live not I, but Christ lives in me. That's a disciple. How many of them would be able to say that? 90%? 80%? 40%? 30%? The answer I often get is, some will say 10, some will say 6, some will say 4%. The others just come because of obligation. They are there, they want to receive communion, and they go back. And then there's no more Christ in their life until next Sunday when they come for Mass again. And that's not discipleship. Jesus said, if anyone will come after me daily and carry his cross daily, it's a living what you are. His image and likeness given to you at creation and given to you again at baptism. Living that day by day by day. That's a disciple. I live not I, but Christ lives in me. That's the definition of a disciple. And then Jesus says how? Baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. If you look at that word name, name means person. Person. Baptizing means immersing them. Immersing them in the personality of the Father. Immersing them in the personality of the Son. Immersing them in the personality of the Holy Spirit. So baptizing means teaching them to have a relationship with the Father, with the Son, and with the Holy Spirit. So they have an experience of the Trinity. They can look at the Father and say, Abba, Father. They can look at Jesus and say, Jesus is my Lord. They know the Holy Spirit. Come, Holy Spirit. You are my life. You are my very, very life. That's discipleship. Living the life of the Trinity. And then, of course, teaching them to observe all things, that's the catechesis. Growth in the life of the Trinity. Now you and I may say, yes, but it's not easy, it is difficult and all the rest. Yes, it is difficult. But if Jesus is with you, is it difficult? I am with you always. Always. We forget that. I have this difficulty, I have that problem, I can't do something else. But Jesus is with you. The Holy Spirit is with you. Jesus gave us the Holy Spirit. I go, but I leave you the Paraclete. Now, is he just comforting us when he says that, or is he telling lies? Jesus doesn't lie. He gives us the Holy Spirit. He will lead us, He will guide us, He will assist us, He will help us to make proper decisions, He will tell us what is sinful. We have to follow Him. That is Jesus. That is the life of the Spirit. That's the work of the Spirit. And all we have to say is, come Holy Spirit, I need you. Come Holy Spirit, help me. Come Holy Spirit, lead me, guide me. He will be there. Things may not work out, but you'll find they didn't work out for the better. Because that was not in the Spirit. The Spirit had something else in mind. The Spirit had something else to teach you. So this Holy Spirit is not just a trump card. You want to win, so you play the trump card. No. Holy Spirit is the love of God. Our basic, fundamental calling to love Father, Son, and Holy Spirit comes from Him. And I'll just give you a little aside now. In the beginning, the first words of the Bible, God created the heavens and the earth. How? The Spirit was moving on the nothingness, the chaos. Chaos. And out of that chaos, God's Spirit made the wonderful universe and the wonderful universe of human beings.